I would like to first of all welcome you all to this session of MYP Biology Masterclass at Sparkle. As you can see, my name, I am Bhavna Sarada and I teach biology at Sparkle. And in today's class, we are going to, no, it's not like a regular, classroom class type of session today. It's a master class where I will be guiding you how to ace your e-assessment that you will be giving in the next month, right? So let's just get started. I hope you all can see my screen. I hope the slide is visible. If yes, then please give me a thumbs up. In between the session also, I will be asking you multiple things. So you can just, assure me that you can hear me. You can see everything clearly by giving me a thumbs up. You can also, react with some emojis. I'm okay with that. All right. So before we actually start with that, what we are going to talk about, under this masterclass session, I would like to ask from you all that what do you think? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you feeling about the exam right now? Just to understand what's your current, you know, confidence level as of now. You can send me a text on the chat or you can unmute yourself and share your responses with me. No one? Pari, you go ahead.
I'm taking integrated sciences, so no, it's not only biology, but
Yeah. So for integrated sciences, you can share.
I think 7 or 8.
Okay. Thank you, Pari, for sharing this. What about you, Mahi? What do you think?
Ma'am, like a 6 or 7.
Okay, not bad. What about others? Should I take? I don't want to take names as of now because I don't like that. But still, I will be asking few questions and you can always unmute yourself and answer those questions. So, my goal is really simple here. I want to ensure that you all, get at least 2 score higher on your confidence level by the end of this session. I will try all the things so that I can ensure that you understand everything and you can work and get really, really good score in your exam by understanding all these exam secrets, the topics that I'm going to share, the skills that are really essential. Okay. So please give me a thumbs up if we are good to start with the session. Okay. Thank you. So first of all, we are going to talk about assessment criteria overview. I'm pretty sure that you all are aware of the 4 criteria on which, IB judges us. And I'm pretty sure that you understand them as well more than your names right now. Because this is something that is repeated in every class, in every, you know, session that you take in your school while you're discussing with your friends or here at Sparkle. So, before going to talk about each and everything in detail, I would like to ask one question. I hope this first quiz question is visible here on the screen. If yes, please give me a thumbs up. Oh, I have received started responses. Okay. What about others? Don't be shy. I'm not going to judge you. I'm just here to help you out. I will be focusing on those criteria more. So just feel free to share your responses. Okay. Let's just wait for 5 more seconds to see if anyone else would also, like to respond to this and share their thoughts. All right. So by this, I have got to know that most of you struggle in criteria C. Most of you. Not all, but yeah, there are few that faces difficulty in criteria C. There are few that says that criteria A and criteria D. Seems like everyone is really good at criteria B. Is that so? Because no one has opted for that response. No one has opted that criteria B here. Okay, I will keep all these pointers in my mind that you are facing difficulty in A, C, and D and more. So I will be focusing on those three criteria more. So as you are aware that there are four criteria A, B, C, and D. First, criterion A is based on knowing and understanding, and it is all about understanding the question. When we talk about biology, it is not like a difficult subject that, you people or students don't get biology. What they struggle is in understanding the types of questions that are there in the exam. So what do you think if I'm talking about, any question that we get? Out of all those questions, are you able to understand that what examiner actually want you to write in the question? Okay, I have received yes, sometimes, yes, sometimes. Okay, it's 50-50. Sometimes has taken the lead now. Okay, got it. So it means that few students believe that they are able to understand the question and they do understand what examiner actually wants, but there are few that struggles in that. So we will keep this point in mind and I will help you in focusing on the points that will help you in understanding that what are the basic demands of those questions. Okay. Then comes criterion B, that is all about inquiring and designing. Criterion C is all about processing and evaluating, and criterion D is all about reflecting on the impacts of science. If we talk about criterion A, it is all about understanding the concept, then understanding the question, and then writing your responses correctly. Criterion B is all about, doing experiments, but not in the lab. You are there in the lab, but not physically. You are just, thinking everything. You are just hypo it was just like a hypothetical situation that you create that okay, let's say you are in a lab and you have to perform the experiment. So what variable you are going to change, what you will keep constant, and how you can measure the one. So these are the few things that comes to your mind. You think about the steps that you are going to include in your experiment so that anyone can replicate that and do that experiment. While if we talk about this criterion C, this takes us to the next level after this criterion B, where everything is done. Experiments have been performed. We have the data. Everything is given in the question. We just need to analyze it. We need to evaluate it. We need to find out the conclusion from that with proper scientific reasoning by looking at the background and the experimental steps that are there in the question. We have to find out the major errors, how we can improve it. So criterion C is one step ahead of criterion B, where we don't talk about how to perform that experiment. That is already given. We should be able to evaluate it, analyze it, and write down our whatever conclusions are. Then there is criterion D, and honestly, this is my personal favorite because you must be aware that there is no hard line marking scheme or something when we talk about criterion D. It is like what you think, what you understand about that given particular situation, and what you think is the most appropriate answer to that. Because now at this time, you have that bandwidth that you can go out of your textbooks, you can use your brain, you can apply whatever concepts you have studied in a real life situation and get your answer correct. So all these criterion are scored on a score of 8 maximum. I hope you all are aware. If yes, then please give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. It means that you guys are listening and responding to everything. That's great. So let's just start talking about criteria A in detail. Because some of you mentioned that, you face a little bit difficulty in criterion A, that is knowing and understanding. So if we talk about this criterion A, have you heard something that we call as, command terms? Anything about command terms you are aware of? Do you understand these terms? Oh, always. Wow. Okay. Somewhat. Always. All right. So I have received the responses from almost all of you. So first, there are three students, the majority, they say that they find easy to understand the command terms. They read those command terms carefully, while there is a proportion of students that say that they don't really understand the command terms properly, but they sometimes do understand it. Okay. All right. So when we talk about this criterion A, it is all about focusing on scientific knowledge, understanding concepts, and the major marks for this criterion is hidden in those command terms that we talk about. And it is just not enough to understand the command terms. At the same time, it is really important to include all the correct terminologies, all the major key terms with respect to, we won't be writing anything vague. It would be like proper scientific key terms that we will be using to support our answer, to explain our answer. So, first of all, when we talk about, while answering any question, we should be able to recall the concept that we studied behind it, properly explain that with scientific ideas, and at the same time, we use the correct terminology. So there are multiple command terms. I know that you all have access to all those command terms and understand what do they mean. You can clearly look at that and understand. What I have observed is that there are few command terms which are more repeated in criteria A questions. So I will be talking about that only. So when we talk about the state command term, in this the examiner honestly want you to give brief answers, one liners, one word type of thing, where you are just stating that particular thing. You don't need to say what happens, why that thing actually takes place, what is the exact phenomena, what is the exact process that happens over there. No. Then comes outline. In outlining, they just want you to give general summary, just list down those steps, just make a flowchart kind of thing, just ensure that you are talking about the major steps in a proper manner. Then comes describe. I have observed that most of the students that I have here, and I had in the last session also, they find really difficult to understand the differences between these two command terms, describe and explain. Are you guys aware what is the basic difference between these two command terms? What examiners expect you to write when it says describe? Anyone would like to volunteer and answer this question? No? Okay, just give me a thumbs up. That works better, I think, for all of you. Just give me a thumbs up if you are clear with these two command terms and the differences between these. Okay, okay, well done. That's great. So describe simply means say what happens, and explain means that you need to give reasoning. So if you are adding reasoning, it means that you are giving the explanation, not just description. Okay, works for me. Then this is a typical, criteria A based question where they give you a background. They give, they love giving images in the question, and then they ask a simple question. So it is more important to understand that what background is given, what is there in the background, what image is given, what it is representing, and then they simply ask a simple question. Like in this question, you can see that they are asking state the name of the structure in the cell that prevents it from bursting when it is turgid. So we know that cell wall is the answer. Cell wall is the structure that helps prevent plant cells from bursting. So they just want a direct answer to it. They haven't asked for description or explanation. So make sure whatever you are writing, it is best in regard and in respect to the command term that is mentioned in the question. If you will write more, you are going to waste your time. And If you are going to write less, you will lose marks. So it's very important to keep a balance so that you are able to finish your exam on time and ensuring that you are adding all those details that are required to get the proper or the maximum score. Then comes criteria B, where everyone thought that or everyone mentioned that it is pretty clear, but still I will be again launching one more poll to just to understand things. What do you think? Okay, okay, okay. So this time I have literally received the all the four options have been opted by different students here. So it means that when we talk about marks, it's really important that whenever we are doing any exam paper, we need to ensure that we are able to finish that in time. And for that, it is really important to hold up ourselves whenever we are writing any answer. Like I mentioned, if you will write too much, you will lose time and you won't be able to finish your paper on time. Some are saying them that they miss keywords. And for criterion A, the, the questions are not at all difficult. It is all about that whatever answer you are writing, you are including key terms. And some says that they are not able to explain properly. So, like I mentioned, just focus, just try to recall that, just try to focus on the command term and then write your responses. Another question on your screen. Okay. Yeah, I was expecting 100% in this. So, all have opted for manageable. That's great. So, I will quickly move through this criteria B. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. So, it is all about planning the investigation. So, in this, we know that there are three major star markers here. We should be able to write focused research question, testable hypothesis we should be able to develop. And please remember that if you are writing any hypothesis, if you are formulating any hypothesis, it should have scientific reasoning in it. Please don't write it without, not writing about the scientific reasoning and design a valid logical method. So this is all what examiners look for: focused research question, proper logical testable hypothesis with reasons, well structured method. Can anyone would like to take the initiative and tell what are the basic things that you include while, writing any method, designing any experiment? Yes, please, Mahi. Thanks. Please go ahead.
The equipments required.
Absolutely. What else? Anyone would like to add any other point? Don't be shy. Like I mentioned, I'm not here to judge you. I'm going to help you out in best way possible. So you can share your thoughts with me. Pari, would you like to add on to this?
How you are going to collect the data, in which, like, will you maintain it in a table, and then you have to also have a step to calculate the average.
Absolutely.
You have to mention that you have to have at least 3 trials for reliable and accurate data.
Absolutely. So till now, I have got 3 points. First, that we are going to talk about the equipments that we'll be using. We are going to talk about that how we are going to collect the data. And then we also need to ensure that we are repeating that experiment. Without repetition, it won't make sense, right? Is there any other step that is still missing? Or that's it? This is all what we need to do.
The method should be in an order.
Absolutely correct, Mahi. Thanks for adding this point. So, yes, step by step, we should ensure that whatever method we are writing, that should be properly in a step like manner, right? Okay. Any other point? Do we also need to include that how we are controlling the other variables that we don't want to interfere with the investigation? If yes, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Except Mahi, no one believes that we need to also talk about that how we are going to control other variables and why it is important. Oh, I have received thumbs up from Pari as well. What about Tejas, Priya? What do you think? Thanks, Tejal. Okay, okay. All right. So everyone thinks that. That's great. So when we talk about research question, all of you are aware that it is how does followed by independent variable affect that dependent variable. And when we talk about variables, there are three: independent variable, what you change; dependent variable, what you measure; control variable, that you keep constant. Hypothesis is, it is always better and recommended to write hypothesis in if then because format. If followed by independent variable, then dependent variable, and after that we are going to write because with proper scientific reasoning. Please don't write anything random. Let's say, if I'm saying, taking one example, that if light intensity increases, then plant growth will increase because more light enhances the rate of photosynthesis. So I'm giving a proper reasoning here that more light intensity means greater would be the rate of photosynthesis. So the emphasis, we should properly emphasize on the fact that we need to include scientific reasoning, not just a random guess. Methods is something that in which students lose marks there because they don't write methods in a step by step manner. They don't give clear and logical reasoning to it. And they tend to forget including the details which are enough for that experiment to be replicated by someone else who is just reading through our experiment. Whenever we are writing any method, we need to ensure that we are talking about the exact units, exact value we are giving. That, okay, I'm going to use 5 centimeter cube of this X solution. Don't write take some amount of volume of some few. All these terms should not be there in your method. So materials, procedure, measurements, repetition, these are the 4 key things that should be there while designing any investigation. So numbered steps, specific quantities like I mentioned, don't write some, few and all. Repeated trials, clear setup description, data collection plan, like Pari mentioned. It could be in the form of table or it could be in the form of graph. So these are the common mistakes. Vague research questions, missing variables, hypothesis that is there without reasoning, method is too short to be understood and to be replicated by someone else who is reading it. No controlled variables are there. There are no repetition mentioned in the question or in your answer. And please, like I mentioned, I'm repeating this again, don't use words like some bit because I have seen multiple answers writing these terms instead of the exact values. So this is a typical criterion B question that you can see on the screen. So again, the background would be given and based on that, experiment results would be given. Now you need to formulate a testable hypothesis. And then, like I mentioned, if then because format you should follow. And you need to identify the variables, independent, dependent, and 2 controlled variables with explanation. So please read it carefully if they are mentioning specifically to explain that how you are going to control those 2 control variables that you have mentioned, then only you will get these 2 marks, otherwise you won't. Now let's just talk about this criteria C. It is all about processing and evaluating. So for this, I would like to ask another question. Okay, 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 okay. No one finds it very hard. That's really like a relief for me. So it's easy, okay, hard. Okay, that's great. So I will try to make it easier for everyone that are attending this session. This criterion C could be little bit, detailed because like I mentioned earlier, the responses that I have received that showed that maximum students are suffering from, or feeling challenged in understanding the criterion C. So it might take little bit extra time. So please try to pay attention to whatever I'm going to discuss right now. So we need to focus that what you do with your data, what to do with the data that is already given in the question. Experiment is already done, data we have. So we just need to understand that how to represent the data clearly. Pari was mentioning a little bit about, how to create the table, how to use graphs, right? Now, this criteria, in this criteria, see the student should understand that in which case they need to make the table, how to represent the graph, how to label the axis and everything. So I will include each and every detail here in the upcoming slides so that I can make you all understand. Analyzing patterns is also very, very important because they just sometimes ask that what trend you can see. What is your general observation based on the information that is given to you? Evaluate any result, suggest improvements. So if you want to suggest any improvement, first of all, you should be able to understand that how they are doing the experiment. Okay. What errors, might have occurred while calculating or, noting down those values. So what examiners look for? First thing, they look for correct data representation in the form of table, graphs, clear patterns and trends, and please ensure that if they are asking you to describe and analyze, you are supporting your answer with the data. Don't write, very generic inference that you have made by looking at the table. You always need to support your answer with the data that is given to you. Then comes scientific explanation. Don't write anything randomly. Don't leave your questions open ended. Examiner is not going to show empathy in such cases. So you need to ensure that you are including scientific explanation over there. Now, when we talk about this criteria C, I told you that we are going to move one step ahead of criteria B. So here, whatever hypothesis is there, we should be able to draw a valid conclusion linked to that hypothesis. So thoughtful evaluation, improvements, conclusion should be really thoughtful and proper supported with scientific explanations. Data representation, whenever you are making any table, make sure that you are giving clear heading over there. At the same time, on that heading, wherever you are writing that heading, in a bracket, write the units. You don't need to repeat all the units in each and every row. No, not at all required. If you are writing it while giving that heading to that column, it's fine. You don't need to repeat it again and again. So whatever you are representing, whatever data you are presenting here, that should be properly and neatly organized. It should not look like that you are also confused, that you are not able to understand the data at all. And whenever you are making graphs, you need to ensure that you are using correct type of graph. Axes are properly labeled along with the units. Recently, I took a test and the student was not even able to understand that which variable needs to be presented on the x-axis and which one should be there on the y-axis. And in one of the questions, she figured it out very easily, but then she forgot to write the units. So you need to be very, very careful and pay proper attention while making and labeling the graphs. Can anyone please tell me which variable do we represent on the x-axis? Because this won't be given in the question.
Independent variable.
Absolutely right, Mahi. Very well done. So obviously on y-axis there would be dependent variable. And we need to understand that labeling should be quite clear. It should not be vague. Units should be there and there should be proper titles and the scale should also be proper at that time. And we may need to sometimes draw best fit line if needed. Now, all about describing patterns. Student must describe and support answer with the data like I mentioned. Don't write that as temperature increases, the reaction rate increases. It's really simple to write that. You will get only 1 mark if you are going to just write about the overall trend. You are just describing it. If you are going to support your answer with the data, only then you will get the full mark. So we will write properly that as temperature increases from 20 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius, we are going to observe that the reaction rate will also increase. Can anyone tell me the reason behind it? That if I'm talking about any enzyme. So when we say that temperature increases, then the enzyme activity also increases up to certain extent. What happens during this time? What leads to increase in enzyme activity? Anyone? No?
The increase in temperature.
Yeah, the increase in temperature led to increase in enzyme activity. Why? What happened due to increase in temperature?
The kinetic energy of the molecules increased.
Absolutely correct. So please don't write vague answers. You need to explain your results. That the increase in temperature led to higher reaction rate because particles will gain kinetic energy due to which they will move faster and hence the collision frequency will increase. So whenever we are describing it, and then they are also asking us to explain. So during explanation, we will be giving proper scientific explanations, not just any random generic explanation to that. Very well done, Mahi. Thanks a lot. So last is all about conclusion. So student must include, the answer to the research question that you made. There should be reference to the data that is given and proper link to the hypothesis that the student formulated or was given in the question. For evaluation, please remember that the examiner wants you to identify any limitation or error that may have occurred while carrying out that investigation. Okay. And you also need to explain the impacts of those errors or limitations that happened during the investigation on the results that you got. And at the same time, you also need to suggest specific improvements. I have seen this, not, here, actually, not from any one of you. So there was this student from different curriculum and they also get these types of questions. So he mentioned one error, but the improvement that he suggested was not at all related to the error that he mentioned. So you need to be very careful in such questions that if they're asking you to evaluate and you are finding out the error, for the same error, you need to suggest that what improvement should have been done at that time. What was the major corrective measure that they must have taken to get that proper result? Don't say that this X is the error and this is what you are, suggesting improvement for Y error. Don't do that. Your error that you have identified should align with the improvement that you are suggesting for that particular error. I hope this is clear to you, everyone. Okay, thanks, Mahi. Thank you, Parit. Thanks, Tejas. What about Riya and Sejal? Is there any difficulty in understanding this? If yes, then you can unmute yourself and then ask. Thank you, Sejal. Oh, Riya, are you facing any difficulty in understanding these points? No? Okay. Okay. So give me a thumbs up if you are able to understand these things. Okay, so that I can just, move on to the next thing without any regret in my mind and heart. Thanks a lot. Okay. Then lastly, these are the common mistakes that I highlighted here. Not including units in tables and graphs. Just describing even when explanation is asked. No link to hypothesis during the conclusion made. Generic evaluation without any proper scientific reasoning. And ignoring the anomalies that you figured out. Okay. And not rejecting that. And not repeating your experiments. So this is the One of the, typical criteria C questions that we get based on, again, because like I mentioned, they love giving backgrounds, they love giving, visuals, tables and everything. So you should be able to read the question carefully, understand it first, move to the table, and then focus on the questions. Since this is not a, regular classroom session where I will ask you to read the question, write down the answer, I would like to see, no. I know that by now you are able to understand these things. So I will be focusing on the major details that students, might get confused in or feel challenged about. So in the first question, they are asking to interpret the data in terms of enzyme active site complementarity and substrate concentration. So you need to interpret the data that is given to you in the table. Organize the data. In some questions, they would be nice. They will be giving you, what should be there on the x-axis, what should be there on the y-axis, but it is not always going to be the true thing. Most of the times, you need to figure out that what should be there on the x-axis and what you should put on the y-axis. Describe the overall trend. Like I mentioned, please ensure that you are supporting your answer with the data. Explain why the rate of reaction rate stops increasing after a certain substrate concentration in terms of active site, substrate complementarity, and everything. Evaluate the experimental design. These are the few mixed types of questions that you can get. Then comes criteria D, reflecting on the impacts of science. Like I, informed you that there is no hardline marking scheme for these types of questions. These are open ended. So if I'm saying open ended, it doesn't mean that you can write anything and still you will get marks. That's not the reality. Basically, whatever you are writing, that should be properly, that should make sense actually. That should actually make sense, and you should be able to understand, and you are getting or having certain, scientific reasonings behind it. So if we talk about criteria D, student must explain how science affect the real world. What are the real world, real time applications of those things that you understand by looking at the any situation that is given to you in the question, and consider its impact, both positive as well as negative. If you are writing something, if you can figure out that what should be the impact, so at the same time you need to think that what would be the positive impacts of doing that particular thing, and what are the negative impacts at this very same time. And then you need to evaluate the implications of doing those, measures that you are writing in your answers. What examiners look for is clear understanding of scientific explanation, discussion of benefits as well as the risk associated with that, especially like when we talk about, genetically modified crops. They talk a lot about it. I don't know how many of you have got, certain questions where they ask about, genetic modification, consumption of genetically modified crops and all those things. Balanced argument should be there. Real world examples should be included, and there should be proper logical scientific reasoning behind it. You must have observed that they talk about discussing and, comment on the impacts that it creates. Sometimes they just talk about, environmental impacts that it can lead to. What are the ethical concerns that are associated with that particular, situation that is given in the question? What are the social implications? Economic impact. I know that, any one of you who has taken classes with me, I always say that humans are really greedy. They just want to make profit. They just want to earn more. So, in that greed of earning more, making more money, they may not even think about the, hazardous situation that is created by them. So, it may lead to negative impacts on the environment. There might be ethical concerns that may arise because of that. And there might be certain groups of the society that may not get that access to buy those, highly costly, I can say, products which are available. So there are so many things that they talk about in criteria D. These are the, I'm not saying that they are not going to ask anything else. I'm saying that these are the four major key things which they ask in the question. So we are going to talk about all of them one by one. Mostly they want you to relate your answer with the pollution, how it is leading to any impact on the resources that are available, like fossil fuels, water, biodiversity loss, climate change effects, global warming, what is greenhouse effect, what are the gases that leads to that, how combustion adds on to this, how the waste materials which are released to industries, how people are just letting them enter the water bodies. So what impacts it can create? What are the environmental hazards that you can think of? What we can do with the waste generated? So these are the most common areas on which they ask questions. Have you ever got question based on this? Any one of you? Anything where they ask about the environmental implications? If yes, then please give me a thumbs up. Oh, okay. Wow. Except Sejal, everyone got this type of, question in the school. Okay. Maybe next time, Sejal, as you can see. Oh, you have also received such a question. Okay. Okay. Got it. Then comes ethical, where they talk about animal testing, experimentation on human, genetic engineering, cloning, and right now they are, more and more concerned towards data privacy, AI, medical data being, actually kind of, leaked by someone, the importance of consent, safety. So these are the few ethical things on which they focus. Then comes social. They talk about the social impact. So quality of life improvements, that how advancement in technologies led to increased living standard, or expectancy has increased, their survival rate increased. So what's their impact on the public health, vaccination programs, sanitation, inequality? Like, there are few certain sections of the society, they may not have the proper access to technology like others, because either they don't have sufficient ways to access them, or there are certain inequality or some sort of biasness that is done these days by few people of the societies. Then comes lifestyle changes, where we talk about social media, that how social impact media is impacting, and how it creates like an ideal image of how the physique should be and everything. Automation, education, awareness. And then comes last, that is economic. We just talk about that. What do you think that what could be the impact at the, if we are talking only about the economical aspects? So there you are going to write about, the cost of technology, job creation, job loss because of automation, because we can see that, these days a lot of automation is being done in every industry. So that is leading to loss of jobs. Multiple individuals lost their job during this due to this automation process. Economic growth, accessibility, affordability. Have you ever got any question where they ask about genetically modified crops and how they link it with the economic aspect? That do you think that it is, easily available? Okay, Sejal has given the thumbs up first. Okay, Tejas has also. So these are the very basic type of questions that you get. So you should be properly focusing and paying attention to these aspects. So when we talk about this criteria D, they also want you to think ethically. Ethical thinking should be there. That what you are doing, is it fair to be done? Who gets the benefit by doing these types of things? Which section, or who is the one who is going to be affected by that a lot? Should it be limited, or it should be available, or we should continue to do that? So all these points, your answer should include all these pointers whenever they are asking about ethical concerns. This is a criteria D question that you can see on the screen. They are just talking about global demand for protein is increasing, right? So they are talking about switching to plant-based proteins. Insect proteins are available. Lab-grown cultural meat are there. So there are these alternatives. So they are asking that describe two environmental benefits. So they are just talking about benefits on the environment. Two environmental benefits, one ethical or social issue. Please remember that you might find that a single subpart would be asking you more than one aspect. So you ensure that you are reading that question very carefully so that you can understand what all points examiner want you to write on in your answer so that you can get full marks. Then comes evaluate whether alternative proteins could be a sustainable solution for food, and then justify your answer using scientific reasoning. Like I mentioned, whatever answer you are writing, absolutely they don't have a rigid marking scheme, but they definitely want you to give some logical and scientific reasoning behind it. Is there any doubt in this? If no, then please give me a thumbs up. Thanks, Pari. Thanks, Tejas. Sejal, do you have? Okay, okay. Thanks a lot. So these were the major things that I wanted to discuss about the criteria, the assessment, major things. Then there are high yield hotspots where the marks are hiding. You must have observed that there are certain topics that appear more frequently and carry heavy marks as compared to others because they link multiple biological concepts together. So this is a kind of list that I have prepared based on my understanding by observing the past year papers that they usually talk a lot. They are ask a lot about enzymes and they relate it with the nutrients. They relate it with the enzymes which are there in, human digestive system like pepsin, trypsin. I have seen multiple questions based on that and on amylase also. Respiration and photosynthesis, they love this. Homeostasis is something that is emerging these days, and I can see that multiple questions are being asked. Genetics and inheritance, where they talk about Punnett squares, little bit definition, and they also talk about genetic engineering these days. So please ensure that you are making yourself well versed with the major points about what happens, what do we mean by genetically modified organism, what are the benefits or long term, hazard that are associated with that genetically modified food that you are consuming. And lastly, they focus more on ecology. They will ask questions based on food webs, food chain, energy transfer. These are the most common questions. Apart from that, they talk about nutrient cycles like carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle. And pollution is something that you all must be aware of because this is a very general topic. So these are the few major hotspots where marks are hiding. So make sure that you are paying more attention to these topics. I'm not saying that only these topics would be there. I'm saying that they carry more weightage than others. So if I have to give you the overview, so the time duration would be 2 hours. The exam that you will be taking, it would be of 2 hours. There are three tasks on which they will be assessing you. The four major criteria: knowing and understanding, 25 marks. Main criteria that would be assessed would be A. Investigation skills. In this, they talk about both criteria B as well as C. So that leads to a total of 50 marks. Criteria D, that is about applying sciences, understanding its impacts, what implication it can have on global level and everything. So that constitutes for another 25 marks, making up 100 marks. Any doubt till here? Is there any doubt in understanding about any of the criteria or any major points that I have mentioned about? If yes, then please ask. If no, then give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Mahi. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Pari. Thanks, Tejas. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I have received thumbs up from everyone here. All right. So before we wrap up this session, before I talk about the other things, I would like to ask you questions. Again, there is one quiz, one poll at your end. Please do it. Thank you. Okay. I have received response from most of you. Thank you so much for your kind words, I would say. Thanks a lot. And following this, I would be asking another question. Okay. All right. Okay. 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 So most of you want more such master classes, while there are few that want doubt solving sessions. Okay. I have gathered this data and we will looking at it and finally working. We are definitely going to work towards it. So before that, before we conclude this session, I would like to tell you about the upcoming live master classes that would be there at Sparkle. Chemistry is on 16th April, that is tomorrow at the very same time, 5 p.m. IST. And there is another master class scheduled for biophysics on 17th April 2026 at the same time, 5 IST. Now, if you have any question, then please feel free to ask because I would love to, know your queries and help you in the best possible way. If there is any query, unmute yourself and ask. If not, then give me a thumbs up again. Okay. Okay. Yes, Pari.
Is there a list of topics that can come in criteria D? Because I just wanted to like make pointers and practice.
Sure. Like I mentioned, let me go back to the slide that will also give you a better idea to understand that. So if we talk about this criteria D, we discussed that there are few points on which they focus a lot. Environmental, ethical, social, and economic. So if we talk about environment, so please go through the concept of, global warming, greenhouse effect. Okay. Because I think apart from that, air pollution you must be aware of. They also relate the concept of eutrophication, that how it leads to, the excess fertilizers runoff in the water bodies, and then eutrophication happens over there that leads to death of organisms. And this is how there is biodiversity loss also that happens at that time. So eutrophication, understanding about the various pollution, that is really important. Okay. Biodiversity loss, what are the impacts of climate changes, and waste generation, that how when we talk about factories and industries, they just want to get rid of the things, the waste products that are formed. So how we can ensure that, what are the initiative that should be taken to get rid of these types of problems. For ethical, you must focus on genetic engineering, that how genetically modified crops have an impact or create an impact on us. Like in long term, you are not aware, maybe you get some allergic reactions by consuming that. They can also relate it with economical basis, that when we talk about these products, they might be expensive. So there is requirement of proper technologies to be installed so that all these processes can be done, fermenters and all. Also do little bit on AI, because you can see that this is something that is emerging these days, and IB is all about focusing on the current situation scenarios that are going on worldwide, that what are the impacts that this AI can create on our lives, right? What are the impacts of war? What are the impacts of, increased in the modification? And then there is one more topic that I have not listed here, that is about locomotives. There are certain prosthetic limbs on which they ask questions, that what are the benefits of introducing prosthetic limbs? Are they creating any sort of help or advantage, providing any advantage or not? So these types of questions I can tell you. And enzymes. Enzymes is something that goes with every criteria, so they also focus on enzymes. Okay.
Yeah,
And since you are in integrated sciences, then you can get criteria based question on any of the things. So, but
yeah,
yeah, others are also there, so you can ask those in tomorrow's or day after tomorrow's session also, because that would be based on chemistry and physics respectively. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. So basically, This is the contact number and this is the email ID that I've mentioned here. If you have any queries, then feel free to reach out through the email or through, on this phone number, and please get your queries resolved as soon as possible. So I'm really glad as of now. I'm feeling so happy to see such a positive feedback from you all. At Sparkle, we all are committed to work together in such a manner so that we can support your academic, growth and help you in your academic excellence. I'm really, really happy to have you all here in this session. Is there any other query, any other thing that anyone would like to ask before I wrap up this session? If no, then please give me a thumbs up so that I feel assured that okay, now we can end the session. Everything is clear. Okay. All right. All right then. Thank you for such being such a good, you know, participant. Thanks a lot. All the very best for your exam. Please do your best and please remember the points that I mentioned. All the very best. Bye bye. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye bye.